The morning sun had barely climbed over the rusted rooftops of the industrial street when the black luxury sedan rolled to a stop in front of the small, oil-stained garage, its paint gleaming like it didn't belong in this world of cracked concrete and old tools. And inside the car sat Evelyn Carter, billionaire CEO of Carter Tech Industries, a woman used to private chauffeurs, glass offices, and people who never said no. Yet today she was alone, frustrated, and stranded because her car had broken down miles away from the city center, forcing her, against her instincts, to trust the nearest mechanic, who happened to be a single dad named Daniel Reyes, a man whose life revolved around grease-covered hands, unpaid bills, and making sure his 8-year-old daughter Lily never felt the weight he carried every day. And as Evelyn stepped out in her tailored suit and heels, Daniel looked up from under the hood of an old pickup, instantly noticing how out of place she was, but also how tired her eyes looked beneath the confidence. And when she asked in a clipped, impatient tone if he could fix her car quickly because she had important meetings, Daniel didn't bow or rush or even apologize. He simply nodded and said calmly, "I'll take a look, but machines don't care who owns them," which caught her off guard because no one had spoken to her like that in years. And as he inspected the engine with quiet focus, Lily sat nearby doing homework on a crate, occasionally glancing up at her father with admiration, a sight that stirred something unfamiliar in Evelyn's chest, because she had built empires but never stopped long enough to notice moments like this. And when Daniel explained the problem honestly, no exaggeration, no flattery, no attempt to overcharge, Evelyn, suspicious by nature, decided to test him, casually mentioning she was willing to pay extra if he could prioritize her car. But Daniel shook his head and said, "I'll fix it right, not fast for money," and that single sentence began to crack the armor she had spent decades perfecting, because she saw integrity without performance, pride without arrogance, and responsibility without complaint. And as the hours passed and she waited in the garage instead of calling a helicopter or assistant, she found herself talking to Lily, learning about school projects, favorite books, and dreams of becoming an engineer like her dad. And Daniel, overhearing, smiled softly, revealing a man who had sacrificed ambition for stability, a choice Evelyn had never allowed herself to make. And when the car was finally fixed, running smoother than before, Daniel handed her the bill. Fair, modest, almost insulting to someone used to 7-figure invoices. And when she asked why he never expanded, never chased more, he answered quietly, "Success isn't leaving your kid behind." And that was the moment Evelyn realized this breakdown wasn't an inconvenience but a mirror, reflecting everything she had gained and everything she had lost. And as she drove away, she didn't just leave with a repaired car, she left with a question that would haunt her boardroom, her penthouse, and her conscience. What is all this worth if you have no one waiting for you at the end of the day? Days after the garage visit, Evelyn Carter found herself replaying Daniel's words during board meetings and investor calls, the confidence in her voice unchanged but her focus fractured, because for the first time success felt loud and empty. And on an impulse she surprised her assistant by canceling a flight and driving herself back to the same industrial street, telling herself it was just to thank the mechanic properly. Yet when she arrived and saw Daniel struggling to lift an engine block alone while Lily waited in the heat, something in her snapped into clarity, and without thinking she stepped in, rolled up her sleeves, and helped, earning a stunned look from Daniel and a laugh from Lily, who proudly announced, "My dad fixes anything." And that simple declaration hit Evelyn harder than any headline she'd ever earned. And over coffee served in chipped mugs they talked, really talked, about choices, about nights Daniel stayed awake worrying about school fees, and about nights Evelyn stayed awake worrying about markets that never slept. And she realized they were both exhausted in different currencies. And when she offered to invest in his garage, not as charity but partnership, Daniel hesitated. Not out of pride but fear of losing control of the one stable thing in his life. Yet Evelyn surprised herself by setting terms that favored him, explaining she didn't want to own him, just support something honest. And as weeks passed the garage improved without losing its soul. Daniel hired help so he could attend Lily's school events, and Evelyn started leaving the office earlier, drawn not by obligation but by the strange peace she felt watching Lily explain engines with childish confidence. And though neither of them named it, something deeper grew between shared silences and mutual respect, until one evening Lily asked Evelyn why she was always alone, and Evelyn, for once, had no polished answer, only the truth, and in that moment she understood that the real shock wasn't that a billionaire tested a single dad mechanic, but that a single dad mechanic had unknowingly tested a billionaire's heart, and she had failed the old test but was finally ready to pass a new one.